Okay, so what I'm going to do now is a lecture slash a little demonstration of Node Package Manager, or NPM. And, right off the top, we learn NPM. Mostly people call it Node Package Manager. We know what Node is. Node is a runtime environment that allows us to run JavaScript on the back end. Okay, and we run some JavaScript files using the node.js command line tool. Node Package Manager is built up of really, I say two primary purposes, but there's really, there's kind of a third one in here. Node Package Manager, is all the code that other developers have written, and it allows us to use that code. Okay, so when I say that NPM is built up of a registry, or a database, this is basically a, whatever you want to call it, a registry, a database of JavaScript that's been written that you can bring into your projects. Okay, and why is that beneficial? Well, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has been developed. We can just use NPM to bring in other people's code. Okay, it is also a command line tool that allows you to work with these packages. You're going to download these packages, update the packages, remove the packages, share the packages. So there's two parts. There's a database, there's a command line tool, and, well, really the third part is npmjs.org. There's a website. This is where you find out about all those packages that are out there in the database. And there are lots of them. When I first started teaching this, there was about 1.5 million packages. Okay? Fast forward about 5 years, and there's about 3 million packages. Okay? So the number of packages has went from 1.5 million to 3 million. Right? So this is a very popular, again, JavaScript, one of the most popular languages. This is millions and millions of downloads come from this tool on a regular basis. Okay, so you can think of it as three parts. There's a database, there's a command line tool, and there's a website. The command line tool actually comes when you download and install Node. We've all installed Node on our computers, and so you actually get the command line tool for free. So to kind of demonstrate this, let me go ahead and create a new folder, and I'll just call this NPM demo. You do not have to follow along. And let me open this up in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so we just have an empty folder and do a little demonstration in here. Open up all my windows. Okay, to get started with NPM, there's a bunch of commands, right? This is a command line tool. The commands are not complicated, but the start, how do you start working with NPM? We're going to work with this npm init command. Okay, there's a /y for a quick setup, so let's just see how that works. I'm going to go to the terminal by finding this terminal window, new terminal, npm init -y. This is the quick setup. Let's see what that does. Okay, and you can kind of see it wrote a file called package.json. And it filled in a bunch of information for me. Here's the file that it created. This is JavaScript object notation, right? You've got a JavaScript object represented by the curlies. You've got key value pairs separated by commas. Right? So the name of this package is npm demo. It's in version 1. So it's like major version, minor version, and patch fix. Major, minor, patch fix. We got an empty string for the description because it doesn't know. We've got a kind of a file that's our starting point called index.js. You'll notice index.js does not exist. So that starting point, that go line is index.js. That's where you start. It doesn't exist. There's one script here called a test script. We'll learn about how to run these scripts. Empty keywords array, author, you could put in your name, so on and so forth, okay? But that's the quick NPM init. Let's use interactive mode. I could just run the command again, right? I'll delete the package.json, npm init, and this is just the interactive mode where you fill in the blanks. My package name, I call it my demo. Cannot contain, okay, my demo. How about that? Version 1, description, my fun demo for my class. Entry point, you might want to change this to server.js, whatever, it's just the name of your JavaScript file. The test command will leave blank. If you have a Git repository that you're syncing this up with, you can put that in. Keywords for search engine optimization, nothing to enter here, doesn't matter, this is just MIT license, like anyone can use this. You say MIT license, anyone can use this, it's free, it's open source. Is this okay? Hit enter for yes. Okay. And okay, that's the interactive mode versus the quick mode. That's your first command. That's how you get started with NPM, right? To initialize so that you can use the website, okay? In order to use the website, you have to start with a package JSON. Okay, so that's kind of the first step, is npm init. Okay, so we've demonstrated that. The next thing is how to actually install a package. Okay, you can see npm install, or oftentimes you shortchange that. You just npm I. npm install, same difference. And then the name of the package. Installs a single package, and then you'll see it actually lists that package in the package JSON as a dependency. So let's go back to the website. And we're going to learn about something called Express today, okay, in a follow-up lecture. Express.js. There it goes. Okay. That was interesting. I don't know why. If I type in capital E, didn't seem to find it. But if I type in lowercase express, fast, unopinioned, minimalist framework. Okay, we will dive deeper into what this is. But you can see on a weekly basis, 53 million downloads of Express. That's a lot of downloads. Okay, and so what you can find out, let's actually go back a little bit here. Looking on the right, 53 million downloads. What version of Express we're on? 5.1. What license does it use? The last publish 5 months ago. So you want to see if it's an active package that's being maintained, right? If it hasn't had an update in 6 years, that package isn't being maintained. It might have security risks, or might, whatever. It might have performance issues, security risks, etc. Okay, so you get some basic things over here. A lot of times you want to hit the documentation for a package. You're going to find that here. So expressjs.com is where you can actually delve deeper into that package. Okay, and the install command is right here. npm install express. Pretty simple command. You click install. Now I'm going to recommend, before you run that command, okay, close your package.json. You guys hear me on that one? Before you run the install command, close your package.json. Why? Because when you run the install, it updates package.json. If you have the file open and it's trying to update that file, you might have a conflict. Okay? Close your package.json before you install anything. Otherwise, you're probably going to have a conflict. There's the command, npm I express. If you want to get fancy with it, call it npm install express. Okay, npm I express is the same exact thing. I'm going to click on enter. Okay, we are installing a web server, essentially. This is going to allow us to serve what's called an API endpoint. Okay, Express allows us to serve APIs. And now we've got a few new things here. Notice we have a package lock.json and we have node modules. This downloaded 67 other packages. Express has dependencies, 67 of them. And so I thought somewhere in here it would talk about the number of other dependencies that it has. Real briefly on that, when you have a package that has a lot of other dependencies, you know, if any one of those dependencies has a security risk, your package has a security risk. Okay, so just something to keep in mind is that having a lot of dependencies isn't always a good thing. Back to here, let's open up our package JSON. We can now see on our list, on our in our package.json, now our package is dependent on Express, and Express, as you saw, is dependent on others. Okay, we need to talk about what this little caret means. Okay, because this allows us, we cannot upgrade major versions because of this symbol. Right? If you run an npm upgrade command, it can upgrade a minor version or it can upgrade a patch. Okay, but this number 5 here, typically major versions are breaking changes. So your upgrade command is not going to upgrade major versions because of this angle, because of that caret, as they call it. And so, back to our notes here. I've now demonstrated the command line tool, the NPM command line tool, npm init, npm install. We have regular dependencies and dev dependencies. Dev dependencies are only needed in a development environment. And so you can get something like a linter, right, that you might need on your developer's machine while you're developing, but you don't need that in production. Okay, so dev dependencies are often installed with the save dev or -d. Okay, and these dev dependencies, again, they would not be put on a production box. They are only there on your laptop or on your desktop in development. When you deploy to production, those dev dependencies don't follow. Okay, so dependencies do follow, dev dependencies don't follow your source code. Okay, and then there's an npm run command that allows you to run scripts. Now, if I go into here, right now we've got one script called test. So if I want to run this test script, it's going to be done with npm run test. Okay, and it just says error, no test specified. But this npm run command that I just demonstrated, that's how we're going to run these scripts that we define right here. We haven't defined any scripts here. But these are going to be your start commands. How do we actually start our software running? We're going to define a script to start your software from running, to start running your software. So this npm run command, we're going to do every day. We're going to be very used to npm run. npm update is, like I said, as you're using dependencies, like Express could have a 5.2 come out. Right now they're on 5.1. If I want my dependency to use 5.2, I just got to run the command npm update. And it's going to run all the updates. It's going to check for all the updates against the registry and see what it can update and then update my dependencies so that I can have the new features of the new versions that, again, other developers wrote it and I get to use it. NPM audit is a command, as you see here. Highlight this important security feature that scans for vulnerabilities as dependencies. We're not going to use the audit command much, but it does exist. You see that. I want to show something, and you guys might choose to do this one. Here's the second package I want to show you, which is NodeMon. You guys will all need to do this. NodeMon is a package you only have to install one time, and you install it globally. Okay, and so this is a tool that will restart your server every time you change your source code. Okay, so this is just for my gamers in the room, quality of life enhancement, right? You have these video games and every so often they just release quality of life patches. Okay, NodeMon is a quality of life for Node. And what it does is it allows you every time that you change your source code to reboot your server. So let me demonstrate this, and here's how I can do it. Okay, I'm going to back up to, let me go forward. This is NodeMon. Here's how you install it. Real simple. NPM install -g NodeMon. This is a global install. That switch G installs NodeMon as a global dependency on your computer. Okay, you don't have to do it in every single folder that you create. You just do it once. I've actually already done this. I don't know if I do it again. I'm not exactly sure if that's gonna error or whatever.
I don't think I ever downloaded that on this one.
Yeah. So there we go. Okay. NPM install G NodeMon. Everything looked good. Notice my main entry point is server.js. I'm just going to have a server.js file. All right, and I'm going to have a script here. I'm going to call my script start dev. And I'm going to run node server.js. And maybe in server.js console write, thank you, console log hello world. Okay, so I'm going to run my script. What's the command to run a script? NPM run. The name of my script is start dev. And notice it just logs hello world. Okay, nothing fancy. Okay, so let's do something a little bit different. Instead of just logging hello world, let me go back to the Express docs. Let me boot up a web server, or excuse me, an Express server. Here's a little bit of JavaScript to import Express from Express. Okay, let's do this. Paste. That's exactly from the docs, right? Res.send hello world. Save it. I'm going to run my same script now. And it tells me an error that says, hey, you're using the import keyword, which is a module JavaScript file. You need to specify that. So here in my package JSON, I'm going to add the, I believe, type of module here. Okay, this type of module will allow me to use the import syntax, right, that we talked about last week. So now Control C will end that, clear the screen. Now I run my start dev, and my server is running. If I were to go to port 3000, localhost port 3000, let's see if I can go here. http://localhost:3000. You can see it responds with hello world in the browser. Okay. What was I trying to demonstrate? That now, instead of using the node command, because if I want to make a change here, if I wanted to say hello world, exclamation point, save, I just changed my source code. But if I go back here, notice I don't get my exclamation points. Right? You guys wouldn't like that, would you? That's not fun. That's where nodemon comes in. You change your source code, it reboots the server. So in order to fix this, we'd have to manually Control-C this and then run our script again. Now if I refresh, I get my exclamation points. Okay, but that's a bunch of keystrokes I don't want to have to do, right? Introduce the benefit of nodemon instead of running node in my script, and I'm got all these windows open. I'm going to Control-C this. Instead of my start dev script running the node command, I'm going to run the nodemon command. That was that global dependency I installed. Now if I do npm run to run a script, the start dev script, now notice I'm using nodemon. It even tells you it's watching the JavaScript file extensions. So when I add in some extra source code change and I resave it, notice it says restarting server. Save me some keystrokes. All right, there you go. That's the crash course on NPM. Okay, NPM, we talked about versioning, we talked about packages. npx is just a very similar command that just executes instead of downloading dependencies, it just runs dependencies. Okay, and that's really what you need to know about NPM. Okay, you've been introduced to Node, you've been introduced to NPM now. Okay, and what's coming around the corner is actually diving deeper into Express. Okay, as well as, there's some popular packages. We talked about nodemon, we talked about Express, you guys have heard of React. In this class, we will use Lodash, Debug, Chalk, and Axios. Okay, these are other popular dependencies on the npmjs.com website. Questions, comments, concerns? Was that was that a good enough primer into NPM? You guys feel exposed? You've seen your first exposure? Couple of yay nays? Okay, we'll stop it there.